The average minimum wage in blue states is $2 more than the average minimum wage in red states. I want you to remember that while you watch this video. It's funny, a lot of people will talk about how much we're taxed here in California. We also make a lot more than most people in every other state. The minimum wage here in California is $20 an hour, and it's looking to go up. Because here in California, we actually believe people should be paid what they're worth, and they shouldn't have to live in poverty, especially if they're working a 40-hour work week. And a lot of people will say that, oh, people are always leaving California. You know what mostly happens? People take their California retirement and they move to cheaper states because their money goes further in those states. But the people that I know who has moved to other states, they typically come back because they realize they can't make as much money in those other states, and the life that they're living here in California, they don't get to live in those other states. So when people talk about people leaving California and all that, just realize most people are retiring away from California because they want to take their California money and live cheaper somewhere else. So the minimum wage right now, the federal minimum wage right now is like $7.50. It has not gone up since 2009. And most of your red states pay that as their minimum wage. They go with whatever the federal government has said is the minimum wage. So when you see Bernie Sanders questioning Scott Bessent, who is trying to become the Secretary of Treasury under Donald Trump, and asking him, do you think we should raise the federal minimum wage? And then he says something like, well, you know, I think that's more of a state's issue. Yeah, he's full of shit. He understands exactly what's going on. If we don't raise the federal minimum wage, there is no type of, there's the states don't feel responsible to raise it either.
Right now in America, we have over 22 million workers who are making less than $15 an hour, and nearly 40 million people in our country earning less than $17 an hour. Shamefully, the federal minimum wage, despite the efforts of myself and other people here, have not been raised since 2009 and remains an unbelievable $7.25 an hour. Will you work with those of us who want to raise the federal minimum wage to a living wage to take millions of Americans out of poverty?
Senator, I believe that the minimum wage is more of a statewide and regional issue.
So you don't think we should change the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour?
No, sir.
Okay.
So if you're sitting in a red state and you voted for Donald Trump, what he is saying is, you're not worth more than $7.50 an hour. Do you guys understand that 30 years ago, when I was 19 years old, I was making $4.25 an hour as the minimum wage, and then I got a pretty good job at a community center, and I was making $7 an hour. That was 30 years ago. This guy is telling you that you're going to do that now. You're going to make what I made 30 years ago when we know inflation has gone up. You guys have fucked around, and now you're really finding out that they do not care about you. This guy straight up said to Bernie Sanders, no, we should not raise the federal minimum wage and get people out of poverty. He does not want to even get you guys out of poverty. And here's the thing. Here's how much they care more about millionaires and billionaires than they do you guys. Because Raphael Warnock is questioning him about raising taxes on the rich, and you will not believe what he says. Well, you'll probably believe it. But understand, this is like a 2-minute video, but it is so important. So please watch it, and then I will come back and talk more about this.
I think we need to be fiscally responsible. We need to work to close the deficit and bring the national debt under control. In 2013, Congress extended the Bush tax cuts for everyone except those making more than $400,000 a year. This bipartisan decision saved the Treasury $600 billion, helping to narrow the deficit. Do you agree that ending the tax cuts for those making more than $400,000 would help close the deficit and reduce our national debt?
Senator Warnock, I do not. I believe that you would capture an inordinate amount of small business people who largely are in that cohort of 400,000 to a
So
million.
you wouldn't cut it off at 400,000. What about $1 million?
That, again, I believe these are small business pass-through owners, and I believe that we, as I said before, Wall Street's done great. It is time for Main Street to do well, and small businesses need to drive what I call the reprivatization here away from this government spending.
I agree that it's Main Street's time. I'm from Atlanta, so I'll say Peachtree and some other locations in my state. What about those making more than 10 million? Would we reduce the deficit by extending those tax cuts for folks making about $10 million?
So again, I think it's important that we put in incentives for them to invest. So going back to the 100% depreciation for equipment, that I think that.
So, and I don't mean to keep interrupting, but I'm the pastor, and we're known to be loquacious of speech, but I'm running out of time here. What about $1 billion?
So again, that I think that these are the job creators.
So there's no income level for which you would support raising taxes. Is that fair?
There is no income level that I don't think we should continue the TCJA as it was.
So in a nutshell, he was asked, do you think poor people should make more money so that they're not living in poverty? And he said, no, like without question, no, we should not raise their wages at all. But then when asked, we have this huge debt, right? $32 trillion. They're always talking about it. We're in debt for $32 trillion. How can we close this gap? Maybe, just maybe, we should tax rich people a little bit more to close that gap. So he says, do you think we should tax people who make over $400,000 a year? And he's like, nah, because those are small business owners. Okay, how about $1 million a year? Nah, because those are still pass-through small business owners. Okay, what about $10 million a year? Those guys are job creators. Or no, those guys, we got to incentivize them to do more. Okay, what about $1 billion? And you know what? Those guys are job creators. We got to incentivize them. So listen, he thinks billionaires and millionaires should not have a penny taken away from them to close the debt. But they also think we shouldn't raise the minimum wage. And at the same time, while doing this, they want to cut all types of SNAP benefits. So the people who are making the less money are going to be looking to benefit from some of these welfare programs. They're going to cut those while not raising your wages. But the people who make the most money off of the backs of the people who make the least amount of money, they don't want to take a dime from them. And they know that a lot of times these people are hiding their income and not even paying their fair share. We're not even talking about paying their fair share because they don't even do that. But he's not even trying to close any of those gaps at all. If you're poor in America, Republicans don't give a shit about you. They say it all the time, but for some reason, people in these poorer red states keep voting for them. They don't see their lives changing. They have this idea one day they're going to be a millionaire, a billionaire, and they don't want to be taxed a lot because what if I'm a millionaire one day? People have died, have lived through generations, and that has never happened. This is a lie perpetuated by rich people and politicians to make you okay with staying where you are. It is crazy that people in red states are voting against their own best interests. Period.
Don't want no enemies or ops. Envy in their heart, I tell them stop. Vacation on the yacht.